Today on Papa Bear Patriot, we have another rags to riches project for you in an 0359 Cummins Common Rail rust bucket I picked up from New Jersey and brought it back to life. So here's a walk around. You can see where the fender flares were removed and we had quite a bit of rust underneath. The auto dealer I picked it up from New Jersey used those fender flares to cover it up. Cab corners are rusted out, rocker panels are rusted out. Had to remove those step guards and get rid of those. Replaced the tailgate on it. See, it was pretty bad. Inner fender wells are completely shot. Also in the front wheel wells. Around the right side. I'll show the hood here in a second. The hood even had bubbles on it. On either side, left and right. There's the new tailgate, which needed to be painted. Factory tailgate's much better than the aftermarket. It's much heavier. There's rust holes everywhere on this thing. I guess that's what you get for buying something out of the snow belt and covered in salt. But Jersey's truck market is depressed by about $6,000 on average. My cousin kind of turned me on to it, and I went up there and picked this truck up. It was still under 200,000 miles, and you can see there bubbling through, the rust breaking through the paint on the hood in multiple spots. So here I'm getting it in, tearing it down, starting to take it apart, tape it off, get everything ready to go to start cutting and sanding. So I marked out on the quarter panels on the rear there how big my replacement panels were, so I knew how much room I had to work with to cut the cancer out. So the outer line is the actual size of my replacement panels. I cut inside that, so I knew that I had an area to drill into and spot weld. The inner fender wells, as you can see, were completely rusted out. Here I'm cutting the inner fender wells, trimming them down so that I can open them up, and then I will POR 15 everything when I'm done getting rid of all the weak metal and jagged rust. This is the other side of the truck, the passenger side. You know, this is what rusts out these Dodges, is when the inner fender well rusts out where it comes in contact with the shell, the inside of the fender. Just a little closer look to see how bad it really was. You know, throughout this, there's a lot of blurry pictures in this project, and I do apologize for that. I did not plan on putting this on YouTube or any type of social media when I did the restoration on it. It was just for my own personal use. After I cut out the inner fender wells and cleaned those up, then everything was pressure washed and degreased, metal etched. The entire frame was prepped, and suspension parts, everything under the truck was cleaned, degreased, metal prepped, etched, and prepared for the POR 15. For those of you that don't know what POR 15 is, it's a paint over rust product, and it adheres and seals in the rust that's there, stopping it from getting any worse, and fights moisture for a very long time. So it's an excellent product. Here you can see the cab corners. Before I started working on that, it was rusted out pretty bad. Looking up underneath, there was nothing left. I cut all the loose metal out and weak metal until I got back to something solid I could weld to. Both driver's side doors were rusted out pretty bad in the corners. I cut out all the old metal and fiberglassed in each one of those corners, sealed everything with POR 15 as well. Here I started cutting out the cab corner and the rockers along the whole driver's side. When I cut these rockers out, I had to cut it all the way from the cab corner from the rear of the driver's side of the cab all the way to the front corner of the driver's side of the cab. There was not much good metal left to work with. This door, you can see it was pretty bad. You could see right through it. There was a lot of work that needed to be done to this, prep work and sandblasting to get all the deep-seated rust out of it. Thankfully, there was enough of the cab corner left as a good shape so I could use it as a reference to rebuild it. I learned a lot on this project. It took a lot of time. It was not very easy. I was not able to locate a pre-manufactured rocker panel and cab corner for the driver's side for an 03 at the time I did this project, so I had to build everything on the fly. Here, the inside of the rocker panel closest to the frame rails is already built, and I'm working on the molded portion of the rocker on the exterior that I can attach. Each section I had to build it in 3 pieces. I had to make a jig out of lumber and press and hammer each piece so that they were all 3 identical. This is one of the clearest pictures of the very front piece married up with the second piece prior to me putting the last one in, the third one in. I was pretty happy with how it turned out after grinding down the welds and putting a little bit of body filler on it before paint. It looks almost identical to factory and was able to do it with sheet metal that I had here at the house. This is part of the grill. The grill support was rusted in multiple places and the grill was ready to fall off of it. So I replaced that prior to fixing the hood. Each of the rust spots that you see were ground down and POR 15 was placed on it. There's a look at the new grill support. Corner of the hood. Sorry for the blurry picture again. I did not anticipate putting this online and my camera must have been dirty and I wouldn't focus. There's multiple spots of the hood that look that bad and worse. Each one of the sections of the hood that were fixed were sanded down on the inside of the hood and the outside, POR 15 on the inside, and repainted on the outside. I touched up the grill with a product called Raptor liner. I used that for everything around the bottom of the truck that would get rock chips and things like that, and for the grill. There's that section of the hood sanded down and patched after POR 15 was done. And the driver's side of the hood got the first coat of body filler on it after fixing the rust, sanded that down. Here's a good picture of what it looked like. Everything was POR 15. I did the entire frame, the inner and outer fender wells, inside of the, along the frame rails, pulled everything apart, and POR 15 to everything. This product is very dangerous to spray, like I did. I had to wear a suit and full respirator to stop from dying. There's actually reports online, if you breathe it in the aerosol form, it could kill you. So please wear all your appropriate personal protective equipment. So I learned a lot about welding in these new quarter panels. spot welding and fitting these in. Even though I moved from side to side of each panel not to warp the panels, I learned well after this project was finished from a friend of mine who does body work way more than I do, that the new epoxy body adhesive is way stronger and better and so much easier to do body filler and make everything look nice and straight. My overall work time of sanding, applying, and sanding the body filler would have been cut in half or more if I would have gone with the epoxy instead of welding. Welding is the way we did it in the old days, and I was unaware of the epoxy technique. I heard about that kind of a day late and a dollar short after the project was finished, but I took the time it was appropriate to do it right with what I had. I POR 15 the inside and the outside of the joints where the bare metal was to hopefully reduce rust forming in that area again on the fenders. Application of POR 15 is not the best on bare metal. It's actually intended to be placed over rust that you've already descaled. Bare metal, it's not really meant for that, but I did it as a preventative, hoping it would work for the future. Here's some body filler, getting started with the first couple coats and getting it sanded. I must have gone back and forth on either side of the truck 10 times each side. New application, sanding, reapplication, sanding. There's no easy way. You just have to use a long block and put on your heavy coats, let them dry good before you start sanding so you don't gum up your sanding pads. I did use a straight line air sander that was a godsend on this project and saved a ton of time. Here's the application of the Raptor liner on the bottom half of the doors, cab corners, around the bottom part of the body to protect it from rock chips and any other paint damage. Here I've only got a couple coats left on the body to finish up and then do some fine putty filler to get ready for paint. Then the rims and all the decals, I went ahead and plastid-dipped everything, taped it off and plastid-dipped everything to match black so there was nothing chrome. I wish the pictures were a little clearer so you could see the detail, but everything looked so much better and was solid when I was finished with it. So I picked up that Ingersoll Rand straight line sander off Amazon, and I also used the Dura-Gold premium pre-cut sandpaper sheets that are self-adhesive. Those worked out great. You get those in all different grit. Really is a time saver. Just don't make the mistake I did and get in a hurry. Make sure that you wait for all the body filler to dry fully before you start trying to sand, otherwise you end up gumming up your sheets and wasting them. There was the primer on the front end, and here's a primer, first coat of primer on the side. Did primer, wet sand, primer, wet sand, primer, wet sand, 3 coats before color. Found some more high and low spots and dealt with those as needed. Thanks to Schnizzle for coming out and giving me a hand. Appreciate your help, brother. Also, thanks to Z for coming out. He's done a lot of body work in the past and helped me with the paint mix and getting the first coat of paint down and getting the spray right. Helped me to set up my gun. It's always good to reach out to guys with more experience than you, and he did an excellent job, and I really appreciate his help. So here's after the first coat of color, and a little wet sand and the second coat of color, and the same to the third coat of color. It's not perfect, but it's not a show truck either. It is a work truck, but at least it should last me a long time. And for anybody that's thinking about tackling a project like this in your barn, one thing I would say is temperature is a big deal. I had to use the pop-up propane drywall heaters to keep the barn warm, and plastic off the ceiling to keep the heat in so that the paint would cure correctly, because I did do this in the middle of the winter. For anybody interested, you can see the toolbox in the bed of the truck, 2-drawer toolbox with a slide-out tray on top. I didn't feel like spending thousands of dollars on a store-bought one, so I made that one, and it matches black and silver with the rest of the truck. Here's the tailgate. I had already sprayed the top and bottom with the Raptor liner, and now the tailgate was getting the color. There's a look at the toolbox, and then also the flush mount LED reverse lights I put in the bumper. Works out real good for a backup camera, lighting up for when you're backing up for a trailer to hook up your trailer. So here we're almost done, getting everything finished up and all the tape and plastic and everything pulled off, and get the rims and tires put back on. Now putting all the molding back in, headlights and everything. There is a little bit of orange peel on the hood I'm not happy with, but again, it is a work truck, and at least it's going to last a long time. I am pretty happy with how it turned out. Most people would look at it and not know that the quarters were cut out of it and completely replaced. So it's not too bad for a shade tree mechanic. I did also want to say thanks, Mom. Greatly appreciate all your help. Couldn't have done it without you. I wish the pictures were a lot clearer. Again, I must have had dirt on it and it wouldn't focus. But you get the idea, and you see it looks considerably better than it did when I started. I did also have to replace the hinges for the tailgate that rotate in the bottom that hold the tailgate in, because those were rusted out. I ended up buying a second set just in case, because those seem to be a problem on the Dodges. And there she is picking up Ruthie Red before I started on that project, and there'll be a link in at the end of the video here for Ruthie Red if you haven't seen that project.